So, question for you. Have you
Yes.
heard about this new term that's doing the rounds in the AI part of the web called the harness?
No.
Okay.
How technical are we about to get?
We're not technical. It sounds like a technical term, but it's not a technical term.
The AI classic sounds impressive. Turns out it's actually very simple to get your head around.
Yeah, quite literally, yeah. So, in a nutshell, a harness is the way that the AIs that we use interface with our technology that we use every day. Think of it that way.
Way
So
that
how do we have
are the AI,
connections?
like how does ChatGPT or like for Microsoft, where they've been like, we're going to put Copilot in Excel.
Mm,
Would that be the harness? So it's actually
correct.
in Excel rather than.
Well, it's yes,
Okay,
possibly
nice.
inside it, but it's more about the way that the technologies connect, right? So it doesn't have to be directly in Excel. You could access it from Copilot Chat going into Excel, but the idea that the two technologies are talking to each other.
Because all of them have tried to push me towards, have introduced connectors
Hmm.
and Claude co-work.
Yep.
I mean, I started experimenting with that at the weekend. That's the first time I felt like I've got AI living in my laptop. That I did the classic, the most simple, organize my desktop just to see what it would do from the cluttered mess that it is. And I
Hmm.
have now 10 very sensibly named folders with content that makes sense for it to be in them. I still need to go through and actually delete what's relevant or not. But it was kind of cool that I just said a thing, left it alone, and came back, and it done its magic.
Done some stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why it's like the top, say top, but one of the top conversations in the AI sphere is that it's around the concept of the models that we're seeing released, and Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini have all released models in the last week or two, which are iterative on their previous ones. I wouldn't say they're like big leaps and bounds like sometimes we see, but each of those models has introduced some new capabilities. But what the thing that's making people choose one model over another or find value in one model over another is no longer necessarily the quality of the model now. I think it's widely argued that they're all really good. We would say the same, right? They're all good. Doesn't matter what you start with, they're all good now. It's how does it connect into your day to day? How does it make you better at what you do and or need to do? And that's the harness layer. It's like so think of it as an integration layer. And previously it had been you have to be coded, use an API, or sometimes in the past we've seen things like no code tools still have their place. But increasingly, though, the technology is trying to handhold our way into that more and more and more. And Claude Cowork is a really good example.
So, right. I'm out of my depth here, but I'm gonna pose a bad question, and hopefully you can save me and make it a good one. So, spoken to lots of organisations where they go, yeah, we're taking AI seriously. Our IT team are building a company version of ChatGPT, which I always assume is like, okay, you're gonna have an API, connect it to Azure, pushing my knowledge here,
Mm-hmm.
connect it to your org data, some kind of RAG, and you're going to get a version of ChatGPT that spits out your company knowledge alongside. Yet to hear anyone say that they like their company version of this and that they use it instead of the actual main platform, but I'll bypass that bit. Um, what's my point here? Does this harness thing, like a thing that keeps happening with AI, is like loads of work goes into take the core capability and build in like a user application layer
Mm-hmm.
that eventually the tech companies come along and they just release something that like now completely obliterates all of that work because it just does it. So is there like, will this harness thing eventually be like, I don't know, for all of companies' special projects around AI internally, suddenly find that actually there's a connector button that does what they've spent months trying to solve?
It's a really good question. I'd say yes and no. That's a very consultative response, right? It needs more nuance to that. I think the answer really is that it's coming at it from a different perspective. So I know you weren't necessarily intending this, but I think the point you made about companies don't, or you get to see the majority of employees get really enthusiastic about the centrally created agent or bot that an organization's created with a knowledge base on their behalf. I think that does ring true, probably because the knowledge it's trained on is generic and organization wide and not necessarily specific to their use case. And even the cases where it is, it becomes disconnected from the people that want to use it day to day. So there's still a place for that. I think that should be the end goal, but I don't necessarily think the business that's building it knows what the people who are doing the work day to day need. So there's this disconnect, right? And we've seen that in loads of different scenarios, not just with tech, but in general, when the business essentially decides that we need something, but the people say they need different. I don't think that's anything new. So what this harness thing, and again, this is a term that the AI geeks will give to it, not necessarily what it will end up being known as forevermore, but the idea
More
is
power to the terms.
exactly, yeah.
This is what keeps me employed. Being able to say rag, and it seemed impressive.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not like you know what you're talking about, Dexter. You do. But the I think the way to look at this is it's like it's coming from that other direction, like the personal there. And we've had this conversation before about, in fact, it was the last podcast we put out, was about the personal difference between personal AI and business use case of AI, right? And should there be a switch? And we're seeing the tech or the AI companies right now pushing a personal feature that allows us to integrate stuff from our side of things, from the individual's perspective. At some point, they're going to meet in the middle, and that's already possible. So in the connectors that you see on your ChatGPT, your Claudes, to say like Google, the Google Suite workspace, or to your SharePoint, that's in that direction for sure. So, but what I think what we're seeing, and it is about those tools, obviously in a business context. But I mean, Claude Cowork's a really interesting one because that isn't just about the centrally held data that might exist on a SharePoint, for example. That's also about what exists on your machine, isn't it? And how you want to work with it today. And so you can say, take a look in my desktop folder and tell me what clutter I've got and think of a way I could organize this and tell me which bits I can get rid of. And, you know, and that's a job that you don't really want to be doing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't an AI pass over it and have a go at looking at it? So that's not something that a central organization is trying to do for you. It's not trying to make your desktop cleaner. It's a different purpose, but actually their meeting point at some point will be probably a unified way of all systems and data talking to each other within a company's technology.
Some like naive questions here. When we talk about a harness, is it inherently, God, this is a bad question. Is it inherently kind of agentic? That is some kind of, it takes the core capabilities and gives it some ability to do stuff in another environment?
Yeah, I think it's increasingly true. I don't think the harness itself is agentic AI, but it relies on a certain level of agentic capability
Okay.
to be able to do those activities. So, like, take your Claude Cowork. Well, in fact,
Yeah.
you described to me because Claude Cowork will have said to you what it was doing when you said go and do this task.
Claude Cowork was like a quantitatively different experience to using the core interface. I mean, I've never had where it starts telling me how many tokens it's about to burn through to do the task. So that was, I mean, I felt like I was more on the developer side. Suddenly, I was like, yeah, I'm with the techies here, even though this is
It was an
literally
autopilot. It was doing it for you.
they've literally had to create this to make it applicable to the non-techies. Uh, uh, so and it didn't feel like I was prompting. So I guess like I didn't feel like I needed to give it loads of context and constraints and imagine you're this role. I mean, I've probably used it for its lowest case, uh, and loads I could ramble here, but I probably used it for like scratching the surface stuff, where I've just dipping my toe in to go, well, can you do this? And then watching it run off and action things. So I pointed at some of our Thinkstitute folders and got it to come up with what our key sales messages are based on what's within our thing. And I did a pretty good job. I'm not sure that's that far beyond what I could have done with the main interface. So I still feel like, which I love this bit of AI of like this new capability is unlocked, and now you are part of the worldwide R&D department to go, what's all the things that you can actually start doing with this that produce economic value? Because there's no clear technical manual that's unique to you, to your context, on it.
So let me give you an example. Because I was similar to you in the when I was using it last week. I was like, let's do a job that, well, for me, it's a big job, right? And I actually put a comment on your LinkedIn post about it specifically. But so my downloads folder for me gets treated like, oh, well, it gets treated badly. Let's just say. So I set at the task and said, look, I know my downloads folder is overflowing with stuff, and there's definitely some capacity on my hard drive I could free up. Can you look at any files that I have not modified or opened in the last 6 months? Build me a list so then I can choose from those files and folders, because there are folders in there as well, what I can remove. Now, I didn't ask it to make suggestions. I wasn't asking for that because I'll be quite particular about what goes in there, because I say sometimes it might exist there and nowhere else on my machine. So I kind of know that when I see the file, I'll be like, I need to keep it or I don't. So I can triage it quite rapidly. But I needed to see it in a way that worked well and to understand the size of the problem that I was going to be dealing with. It built out a plan of action, which I approved. And I won't go into detail exact what it said because it's too nuanced, but I'll tell you how I then was able to work. So came back half an hour later, and what it done is it indexed obviously my entire folder. It had found 626 files that were over 6 months old or hadn't been touched in 6 months. So yes, my downloads folder is horrendous. And that equated to around about 15.5 gigabytes of data that I could free up on my hard drive. So I said to it, great, how are we going to start deleting these and working out which ones to delete? So I said, oh, okay, what I'll do is then I'll create you a file which we can work on, which can hold that information. But rather than create me a Word doc or an Excel or something like that, it actually created me an HTML file, so like a web page that loads locally on my machine, and it's now got drop-down boxes, it's got functionality on it, so I can check specific files or folders and all that kind of stuff. Great. I was working through it and I was like, God, it would be a lot easier if I just had on a big folder I know I want to delete, have a select all button. So I then said back to Claude Cowork, can you give me a select all button as a folder level so I can decide what I want to, if I want that whole folder to go, I go, boop, there you go, select all. In it goes. So I did it, and it goes. So I think in my instance there, what I was seeing was the ability to, I'm going to call it, create my own mini app to solve the problem that I had in that instance, which is I've got a massive amount of files that could take me so long to triage. Like, I built something that to solve or help me solve the problem fast. And in the end, I ended up consolidating that inbox in around about 15 to 20 minutes worth of work, which, let's be real, if I could do that in 5 minutes, right? If I just said select all, delete on anything, filter by age. But how much good stuff am I going to lose in there?
Okay, so genuine experiment. I don't know how this is going to work out, but this is the stage that I'm in with Claude Co-work.
Yeah.
And so we've got our point of view slides. Oh, sorry, Tom.
I didn't say anything, but I was going to ask a question. It's like you were telepathically linked to me. Just explain to the audience what our point of view slides are real quick, Dex.
So I guess when people engage with us around AI adoption, I think it's because this is like such a emergent new area, and people are coming from such different perspectives. Our point of view slides are about 4 or 5 slides long. There are kind of critical frameworks. We can put a link to a PDF of them potentially with this, but they really explain our key thinking around the horizons of impact AI is going to have, what effective AI leadership looks like, how you get AI literacy through your organization, and how you align what your IT team are doing with your people enablement agenda. That's kind of broadly it.
Cool.
And so I was sending this the other day, and I have to say, there was like a part of me that's going like, it's funny, for all the preaching of like the transformation of AI, I'm still sending a PDF slide deck.
Yeah.
That would have been sending years before. Be much cooler if I could give them something engaging, something that's interactive. And the immediate hurdle I hit is like, well, that's probably web-based. It probably requires a level of coding and competence that I just don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a kind of thing that I think I could actually solve using the chat interface with it slowly working alongside me.
Yeah.
I think I could give a swing of just putting into kind of agent mode on ChatGPT and seeing where it gets to. But I'm also curious, is this something that Claude Co-work would be really good with?
Let's give it a go and
So
see.
yeah, so I've got no idea how this turns out. Turn it into an engaging interactive website to engage with. Follow the flow of the slides. You want the user to come away more informed and engaged with AI adoption as a human-centric challenge.
And seeing as it's before you hit go, you've hit go already. I was going to say put a call to action in there, but it's all right because it's a web page. People expect it. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll then get the iteration
Well, that's it. So
piece of it.
when I was
So if
going
anyone's
through
not used,
this, go on, Dex, you go.
I'm going to talk through what's happening on screen. That is pretty cool. That it explains to you what it's doing. Normally comes back with a question or two. And again, this feels familiar but different to me. Like I'm used to, particularly you've got the reasoning models. It will tell you what it's thinking about. In the agentic modes, it will tell you it's going off to read these websites. It's doing this and that. This kind of running command. I don't know. Again, it feels like you are slightly more on the developer side of it.
Yeah. So this is where, like, you asked a question earlier about the agentic side of it, and I said it's kind of like it's leaning into the agentic tendencies, right? So you can see where it says like running command, as you said, or it was, I think the first one it said before it came down was talking about skills, and skills are something in Claude that you can give to your instance of Claude specifically, things it can do. And um, so what you're really seeing is the system deciding how best to proceed. Ironically, most AI chats for at least the last couple of years have been doing this, often in the background. Sometimes you see it more prominently on tools like Perplexity, where they'll tell you which sources they're looking at and processing and things like that. But the reality is the AI is deciding what it's going to do next. So probably did a bit of research, then it was going to build out a script. Now, what it's actually doing is, you can actually see it here, is writing an AI adoption.html. So now it's actually writing the code that will build out your website or your web page specifically. And on that right side, you can see that progress as well. So what you're probably going to end up with after this step is onto step 2, where it's going to say, it's going to do a bit of a Q&A, whether it does it itself or it asks you for your feedback. We'll see. It's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. It can do all of this.
Uh, and I reckon, here's my guess. I think it's going to be very underwhelming. Like, it's not been given a huge amount here, and I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised. But I guess a call out of, like, I know so many people who, when they talk about their AI experiences, basically they've done something like this. It came back with something underwhelming, and so they went, it's not perfect. Enough of that, and stopped there. To me, this is like this is the first little voyage to find out what the starting point is with basically being a rubbish user. To go, what can it do if I'm useless in this dynamic? What
Yeah.
it can do, and then how would I need to be better to work with this to get it to unlock from all of the noise around it what is a highly competent tool and machine.
And this will be different for everybody. You're doing something that's completely different outside of like what you do normally. Like if you were a
Yeah,
web developer, for example, you'd be able to feed in all the style sheets and stuff that you have, which are how websites end up looking on brand and the appearance that they have. So you would have a load of files that could actually inform the AI on how you want it to look, the fonts, what you wanted to use, the spacing between assets on the page, even potentially the images that you wanted to use. So you're doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone. You can't give it all that information. I mean, another great example would be, you and I get a lot. We spend a lot of time working in data when we're asking people about their levels of AI maturity or just in general psychometric tools. Imagine you've got 30 spreadsheets and you're wanting to move the data from all those sheets into one consolidated sheet, or at least parts of that data, so you can do some analysis on it. That's a perfect job for co-work, because you can go in and access all those files in that folder and work systematically on them over a longer period of time. That's probably more akin to the way that you might use it, Dex, rather than, well, I think
yeah,
naturally use it. Yeah. So, but this is what's cool about co-work. And for anybody that doesn't normally work within AI in this way, that's why you and I said, oh, we went away and then came back and then suddenly something appeared. This isn't prompting into AI, get an immediate response, do something with it. This is a longer form, structured piece of work that it's going to go and reason through multiple times to make sure it gets the best result, which I don't think most people are used to working with. They're used to that instantaneous, dare I say it, Google search-like response. And as you can see, this is not churning this out in 30 seconds. This is, several minutes worth of work here.
So you can see how, right, if we connect this to what the name of the company? It's the company that owns like LexisNexis and several of the legal publishers, where their stock price tanked because of pretty much this co-work, where they released a new legal skill, uh, where I can see how. So I mean, if you just go to like core Claude interface or ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, there are several reasons why there'd be limitations to what it can do to support legal work. It would still be super useful, and there'd be big kind of issues with it. Um, uh, but you can see now, if Claude can understand what are the steps that lawyers go through and what makes a good approach to a legal task, and it can go off independently and start executing some of those independently whilst keeping it as a collected task, that moat of legal work gets nibbled away at. Where I still think like the big moat is legal work is predicated on the written word of law and precedent that's come before that. So it can't be just on training data. It has to be using the proprietary, I'd say copyrighted. That's probably not the right term. But if you haven't got access to all the legislation and all of the case law, then it's only going to do so good a job. But that feels like an increasingly small moat. It's like same with academic research. It's like it gets access to reviews of academic work, not the academic work itself. Otherwise, again, like what this can do now, reason, think, produce, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it would be easy to go, oh, that means all lawyers are going to be replaced. I don't believe that, because it's going to be very hard to hold an AI accountable should someone need to be sued or held to account. So I think, you know, the human presence in that process will still remain, but like to your point, I think the work accomplished can be done. The same volume of work can be done by fewer people ultimately,
I
or
haven't
definitely
got
faster.
I haven't got a source to back this up. I heard it once and I've held on to it being true ever since. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, most law firms' kind of biggest cost outside of actual labor costs is payouts on negligence claims, where work's been done. It comes to like years down the line that something wasn't quite to standard, and so that's a big cost for them. I don't know. I think that's true. I'm not 100% sure. But I'd also go, having worked a lot with law firms and seen how the hours that people work and the intensity at their work, particularly at the junior levels. Again, having something like this, which not to replace, but to support and enable, and take out some of the kind of really heavy duty leg work, and mental work to allow them to focus, again, could be a massive uh, performance raiser rather than just, oh, it's automation, AI versus human.
Yeah, agreed. I can see it's come back with some stuff now. It's finished doing its thing. How long did that take? About just under 10 minutes? Probably less than that.
Your adoption website.
And it's added some stuff in that you didn't ask, right? So it's got a quiz in there. It says, well, you asked it to be engaging, and it's taken its own decision that it wants to make it have an interactive quiz, which is cool. So you put in a very, very loose prompt, right? Normally you would say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, so we were expecting a bit of variance potentially from what we might naturally create within the Thinkstitute, but
I think I
you
saw it like tailoring it for Chrome.
just keep it in the thing. You can just move that window across, mate. If you pull the that's it, move that
Ah,
across. So
so here's our 4 strategic pillars. Got to
yeah,
get your strategy, leadership, literacy, and alignment right. And so, if I guess if this was like a proper website, that would start hyperlinking
hyperlinking, yeah.
across our three horizons. Look at this. So we got AI. All 3 horizons are happening at once. That's the nuance of this, but it can drive productivity, work faster, then it raises performance, and then it drives transformation. And currently 93% of the investment is going on the technology, not the leadership and literacy that underscores that.
It's got a little quiz section. Check your understanding.
Exactly right.
Well, it's good that you got that right, because you should be. Seeing as we created
Leading
it. Cool.
to this. Now it's made up these statistics. Love that. Go for it. The leadership amplifier, AI's disruptive nature, that leadership matters more and ineffective ones hurt more. Times 3, times 5 compared to pre-AI to the AI era.
So yeah, that we don't have any of those statistics in that document, right? So there's a good example where humans got to check this, but also we don't know that Claude hasn't gone out and done research on the web and has supplemented our content with stuff from outside of the original knowledge source that we gave in the form of that PowerPoint. So
I won't send this until
but it could be that this is being built on genuine information, which would be interesting.
well, I'm going to ask it whether it has got any data to back
Yeah.
beyond prompting skills. So our levels of AI literacy,
Which it's actually
reflection,
it's changed those for us, and we're like, so we call them something specifically. So this has changed. We'd want to retain those. Again, we could have put that in the prompt, but you know, it's picked it out of this of a. And this is actually what we're talking about earlier on this podcast about the partnership versus infrastructure a bit, about the difference.
I like its little like representation of this, of like the arrows going each way and the leadership bridge. Data and data literacy is the two things that connects them. I'm going to just pause and go like, I think this is the thing that organizations most need to understand right now that's often missing.
Yeah, agreed. So then if I ask you an objective question, Voy, well, that hit send on your question about the data, but then ask you the objective question. Did that deliver on what you wanted it to? Was it interactive? Was it engaging?
So what do I think? I think there's no way that I'm able to build anything like this without this technology. And so I think that opens up a world of possibility. And that almost connects us actually to the previous part of the chat around like you said you built that mini app to solve your cleaning up your desktop. I think we're about to enter the era of like personalized apps because you can just build them. Like that's more transformative than I think people will give it credit when you hear it just as a statement. It won't be until people start doing it to start going like, oh, all of these things which I've never seen through the paradigm of if I had a tool that I could use that would be useful for this, I would build it. It's like suddenly you can. But anyway, I'm not sure I would send this in its current format. No. But as you say, like I'm outside of my area of expertise. I can easily see if I gave co-work better upfront instruction and context and material to work with, it could produce something where I'd go like, we can send them a cold slide deck, or we can give them something where they click on it and it's interactive, and I think that's far more engaging for the end user.
Completely agree. I think like we said, styling and the way that it flows and some of the terminology, of course, it was just a bit of a fun test, but it's but I think to your point, I think the thing we're seeing, or we'll increasingly see, is the idea that we'll be able to create our own personalized apps. And that's really what the question about the harness is how do we integrate with it? How do we as humans work with this technology? And it's interesting in the simplest way. If I bring it all the way back up to where we started on the harness piece, I find myself gravitating towards AI tools that have a chat interface where I can talk to them, because I find it much quicker to get my point of view across. I can see it's pulling through data, so we'll look at that in a second. But like, so naturally, ironically, I know we're in Claude, but Claude's ability to have dictation and then pull that in as prompting is actually much lower than that of Gemini or ChatGPT. So I tend to lean towards those more heavily. But in its most basic form, that for me is a harness. That is what a harness is. It's how am I going to interact and use this technology? And so over time, we're just going to see that expand out from those things into things like this and beyond. And it's the tools that can do that the best, give us the most scope for creativity and capability, that are the ones that will succeed in the long run. And it would be interesting to see how the likes of Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini, particularly because they are enterprise level tools, how they compete with people like Claude and ChatGPT and others, when they're doing things that kind of in some way circumvent the need for those larger systems, to your original, well, not your original point, but one of your earlier points.
Yeah. So
Have you
I love that it's gone off. It's found some pretty good statistics. It's put them in an engaging state. I mean, this is the kind of thing that classic when you're doing a consulting proposal and you got to justify what you're saying with statistics up front, and that's normally a pain to go and source 10 other articles, find the critical thing, copy and paste it across. It's one click and it's done it, and it's written it up nicely.
Yeah,
Of course, go and verify, but I I would be very surprised if any of these are hallucinations.
I would
Not
too.
shocked, but very surprised.
Let's go and we should vet those, and then maybe they will work our way into our POV slides at some point.
Yeah. But again, I think that's such a cool one of also like, okay, we gave it a pretty free swing task. It did create just some fictional data, like people are very worried about the kind of hallucination piece, and I still don't really like the term hallucination. But anyway, so it came up with some fictitious stats about the amplifier effect. So you need to be AI literate enough to know when is it just likely pulling stuff out or making stuff up rather than being concrete. But it only takes one more engagement with it, and bang, you've got something which is rock solid. I'm not sure if I had it before. Of course, it's not got that. It's got like proper little headers. It's lovely. It's been a nice little website.
There you go. That's your homework for the week then, Dex, is get that into a production ready environment.
I mean, if we get that on brand and be like, if you want to know more on what we've got to say, here's a 5-minute rundown. Have a read. Lovely.
So harnesses, or a harness, technical term, not that complicated, just the way that we work with AI.
Yeah.
Nothing to like fret about if you're not using them. There's something quite new, but I encourage people to have a play, right? All the technology's getting them. ChatGPT, Claude have things called connectors. Copilot and Gemini kind of have them a bit more baked in by design because they're part of a broader suite. But they're also increasing those as well all the time. Like Gemini last week or a couple of weeks ago added in Notebook LM directly into the Gemini chat. So another one of its tools within its suite that wasn't previously there. So keep an eye out for these things that can connect your information and open up new possibilities and creativity and give them a play. That's the message I think to take away from today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those that so you just made me think, even if the models don't get any more powerful, which there's no reason to think that they won't, there's still all of this open space of how AI will continue to like evolve and become more useful and unlock more economic value beyond just the tool capability. It will start to be things like how it integrates into everything, and that's true for organizations. You pay for access to Copilot versus you integrate it into the system.
Agreed. And I think what your example shows, and this might be a quite nice way to round it off actually, but what your example shows is that people might look at that and go, well, what's the actual business use case for me, internally with my team, for example, right? But the actual reality is there's lots of times that we in business need to communicate things to our team or to the wider business. Does a deck or a PDF do that? Yeah. Would that website do it better in a more engaging way? Would a video that's created with AI potentially do it well, or something using an AI avatar? Like, I look at this constantly and think, where's the angle for us as business users, as you do? And I look at it and go, it's opening new ways for you to communicate with people that you wouldn't have previously had because it's completely out of your skill set and comfort zone. So is that a bad thing? I don't think so.
It's such a weird world we're going into.
It's exciting.
it's it's just like, I don't know. Sorry, I'll go back to my organizational piece, right? So we, um, absolutely, you're like high performing people would maybe see the potential of that and go, right, rather than being a deck, I'm going to create this little website that I can send round. That's never going to be like the written down, here's how you do your job. That's always going to be a moment of innovation and creativity. So it's just like this very different era we're moving into. I can't quite put that into words, but that's radically different to the difference in performance that was available between people before without this new massive bolt-on capability that everyone can have.
Yeah. Indeed.
Anyway, I'll stop. Each time you talk, I think, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we could go on forever,
stop.
so let's not. So, yeah, good chat. Always looking forward to the next one.
Excellent. I think we're going to do a special guest one. I've got somebody I want to invite on.
Cool.
So let's get that teed up.
Excellent. All right. Cheers, Dex. Speak to you next time.
Sweet. Take care. Bye-bye.